Hello, my friend. Sit with me a while, and I will tell you my story, the story of a man who loved deeply, suffered greatly, and found beauty in the most unexpected places. My name is Vincent van Gogh, and this is my life, as I lived it. Early years, a child of the Netherlands. I was born on March 30, 1853, in the small village of Zundert, in the southern Netherlands. My father, Theodorus van Gogh, was a pastor, and my mother, Anna Cornelia Carbenters, was a woman of great warmth and strength. I was the eldest of 6 children, though there was another Vincent before me, our brother, who was born and died on the very same day, exactly 1 year before my birth. Can you imagine the weight of that? I was named after him, and though I never knew him, I often felt his shadow lingering over me. As a child, I was quiet and introspective. I loved wandering the countryside, sketching the fields, the trees, and the peasants working the land. My mother encouraged my artistic inclinations, but my father hoped I would follow in his footsteps and become a man of the church. I was sent to school, but I never quite fit in. I was different, sensitive, moody, and prone to outbursts of emotion. My siblings called me the difficult one, and perhaps they were right. The young merchant, a life of contradictions. At the age of 16, I began working for my uncle, who was an art dealer at Goupil and Sy in The Hague. It was there that I first encountered the world of art in a professional capacity. I was fascinated by the paintings I saw, works by the great masters like Rembrandt and Millet. But even then, I felt a disconnect. I admired the beauty of these works. My time as an art dealer took me to London and Paris, where I was exposed to the bustling art scenes of these great cities. But I was unhappy. I fell in love with my landlady's daughter, Eugenie Lohier, but she rejected me, and my heart was shattered. I became increasingly disillusioned with the commercial side of art. How could I sell paintings when I felt so disconnected from the world around me? A spiritual awakening, the path to ministry. In my mid-20s, I turned to religion with a fervor that surprised even myself. I wanted to bring comfort to the poor and the suffering, just as Christ had done. I became a lay preacher in the coal mining region of Borinage, in Belgium. The miners there lived in abject poverty, and their suffering moved me deeply. I gave away my possessions, slept on the floor, and devoted myself to their cause. But the church authorities disapproved of my extreme methods. They saw me as too radical, too unorthodox. I was dismissed from my position, and once again, I found myself adrift. The birth of an artist. It was during this time of despair that I began to draw in earnest. I felt a burning need to express myself, to capture the world as I saw it. My brother Theo, who had always been my closest confidant, encouraged me. He believed in my talent, even when I did not. With his financial and emotional support, I began to study art seriously. I moved to Brussels, then to The Hague, where I received guidance from my cousin, the painter Anton Mauve. But my path was not an easy one. I struggled with loneliness, poverty, and self-doubt. My relationships were often tumultuous. I fell in love with a woman named Sien Hurenik, a former prostitute with a young child. We lived together for a time, but the relationship was fraught with difficulties. I wanted to save her, to give her a better life, but in the end, I could barely save myself. The Dutch years, a dark palette. In the early 1880s, I returned to the Netherlands and settled in Wienen, where my parents were living. It was here that I painted some of my earliest masterpieces, such as the Potato Eaters. I wanted to depict the harsh realities of peasant life, to show the dignity and resilience of these people who toiled in the earth. My palette was dark and somber, reflecting the heaviness I felt in my own soul. But even as I poured myself into my work, I felt isolated and misunderstood. My father and I clashed frequently, and my mental health began to deteriorate. I was plagued by feelings of inadequacy and despair. Yet, through it all, I continued to paint. It was my lifeline, my way of making sense of the world. Paris, a burst of color and light. Ah, Paris! How can I describe the way that city changed me? In 1886, I moved there to live with my brother Theo, who was working as an art dealer. Paris was a whirlwind of creativity, a place where artists gathered to share ideas and push the boundaries of what art could be. For the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I met painters like Paul Gauguin, Émile Bernard, and Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. They introduced me to new techniques, new ways of seeing the world. It was in Paris that I began to experiment with color. Before, my palette had been dark and heavy, but now I discovered the vibrancy of Impressionism. I painted flowers, street scenes, and self-portraits, each one a burst of light and energy. I was fascinated by the way color could convey emotion, how a single brushstroke could capture the essence of a moment. But Paris was also exhausting. The pace of life, the constant noise, the endless debates about art, it all took a toll on me. I began to feel overwhelmed, my mind racing with ideas I could barely keep up with. My health suffered, and my moods became more erratic. Theo worried about me, and I knew I couldn't stay in Paris forever. Arles, a dream of an artist's utopia. In 1888, I left Paris and moved to Arles, a small town in the south of France. I wanted to create a community of artists, a place where we could live and work together, free from the distractions of the city. I dreamed of a studio of the South, where we could inspire each other and create something truly extraordinary. Arles was everything I had hoped for. The light was unlike anything I had ever seen, golden and pure, illuminating the fields of sunflowers, the olive groves, and the starry night sky. I painted with a feverish intensity, producing some of my most famous works, the Yellow House, Sunflowers, and the Starry Night. I felt alive, as if I were finally fulfilling my purpose. But my dream of an artist's utopia was short-lived. Gauguin joined me in Arles, and at first, it was wonderful. We painted together, debated art, and shared our visions. But our personalities clashed. Gauguin was arrogant and domineering, and I was too sensitive, too volatile. Our arguments grew more frequent and more intense. The breakdown, a night of madness. One fateful night in December 1888, everything came to a head. Gauguin and I had been arguing for days, and I was in a state of extreme agitation. I don't remember everything that happened, my mind was a blur of anger and despair. But I do remember picking up a razor, and I remember the blood. I had cut off part of my own ear. Gauguin left Arles soon after, and I was hospitalized. The doctors diagnosed me with acute mania with generalized delirium, though I'm not sure they truly understood what was happening to me. I felt broken, as if my mind had betrayed me. But even in my darkest moments, I continued to paint. It was the only thing that kept me sane. Saint Remy, a year of turmoil and creativity. In 1889, I voluntarily admitted myself to the St. Paul de Morceau Asylum in Saint Remy. I needed peace, a place where I could recover and focus on my art. The asylum was surrounded by beautiful gardens and olive groves, and I spent hours painting the landscapes and the patients I encountered. But my mental health remained fragile. I experienced periods of intense creativity, followed by episodes of deep depression and hallucinations. I painted some of my most iconic works during this time, including Irises and the Starry Night over the Rhone. These paintings were not just representations of the world around me, they were expressions of my inner turmoil, my longing for connection, and my search for meaning. Arles, the final chapter. In May 1890, I left Saint Remy and moved to Arles, a small village north of Paris. I was under the care of Dr. Paul Gachet, a physician and art enthusiast who understood my struggles. For a time, I felt hopeful. I painted the rolling hills, the wheat fields, and the village church. But the darkness never truly left me. On July 27, 1890, I walked into a wheat field and shot myself in the chest. I don't know why I did it, perhaps I was tired of the pain, tired of the constant battle within myself. I survived for 2 days, with Theo by my side, before I passed away on July 29th. I was only 37 years old. My legacy. My friend, I did not live to see the impact of my work. In my lifetime, I sold only a few paintings, and I was often dismissed as a madman. But Theo believed in me, and after my death, he worked tirelessly to share my art with the world. Today, my paintings hang in museums and galleries, and people from all walks of life find meaning in my work. I often wonder what my life would have been like if I had found peace, if I had been understood. But perhaps it was my struggles that gave my art its power. Through my paintings, I sought to capture the beauty and the pain of existence, to show the world as I saw it, raw, unfiltered, and profoundly human. This is my story, my friend. It is a story of love and loss, of madness and genius, of darkness and light. I hope it has touched you in some way, that it has given you a glimpse into the heart of a man who lived and died for his art. And that's another chapter from the pages of history, proof that the past is filled with legends, leaders, and visionaries who shaped the world we live in today. But history is far from over. There are still so many incredible stories to uncover. So if you enjoyed this journey through time, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to History's Icons for more legendary tales. Who or what should we explore next? Let me know in the comments. Your idea might be the next great story we bring to life. Thanks for watching, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next episode of History's Icons, where the past comes to life.